What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday, February 19. Welcome back to Foxy Games UK. I'm Fox, your reliable source of aggregated video game news, speculation and rampant rumour. In today's news, Sony say E3 is irrelevant and the main focus will be PlayStation Experience and the new media/press event, Destination PlayStation. Sourced via gamesindustry.biz. Here's the full story. So there's been much speculation ever since Sony announced they would not be attending key events this year, including the platform holder's own PSX event late last year. Some believe it's because of PS5's revealed timing and not fitting in, and not wanting to share the occasion with competitors. Others believe it's all relative to Sony's new strategy, but what if it's far more simpler than that? So Sony Corp has almost been radio silent since June 2018. Sony is in a transitional phase, preparing its next-gen hardware assault of a slightly more focused, streamlined strategy. The reason for the silence is obvious. Sony are not ready to talk about its next-gen plans just yet. And with a new structure still being tweaked and finalized, there's certainly a lot to play for in the next generation. And it's no secret PlayStation 4 is in its final years, the twilight phase, so to speak, and with some big exclusive titles yet to be released, the likes of Days Gone, Dreams, Death Stranding and Ghost of Tsushima, dubbed the Final Four, but these games are known to the gaming public, and it's what we don't know that has everyone in speculation mode. So Sony's absence from its own annual press conference PlayStation Experience 2018 and its decision to pass on E3 2019 for the first time in almost 25 years, it certainly is telling that something is bubbling over at Sony HQ. Sony's absence opens the door and floor for Nintendo and Xbox to shine and grab all the attention. Though Sony seemed unconcerned, perhaps the confidence stems from its award-winning games and record-breaking console sales. PS4 is expected to exceed 100 million units by spring of this year, and if you're Sony, what's there to worry about? So Sony Interactive Entertainment's Sean Layden has been doing the rounds recently with a handful of interviews and a keynote talk at DICE. Layden was candid but in a controlled way, with plenty of talk about past mistakes and how great its competitors are. It was right out of the Phil Spencer PR playbook, yet Layden couldn't resist dishing out a bit of criticism too, and he reserved it for the world's biggest video games event, E3. Here's a quote. E3 was originally a trade show, but E3 became a trade show without a lot of trade activity. The world has changed, but E3 hasn't necessarily changed with it. So Layden's criticisms of E3 is entirely fair, but why make it now? The situation has been true for decades. Retailers arrive at E3 well briefed on what's going to happen. After all, they need to get the pre-orders ready. Online media eclipsed print media long ago, and Sony knows this all too well. It was one of the first to embrace the fact that E3 was really a consumer show in disguise by turning its conferences into fan celebrations. But today, consumers are now allowed into the show itself. The trade show pretense has almost gone entirely. E3 has changed, and Sony knows it. Layden's comments may feel a bit harsh, especially when you consider how some of the most significant PS4 moments took place in LA during that specific week. Getting to the real heart of the issues relates to what Layden said about PlayStation's new content strategy. And with Sony's decision to produce fewer but far bigger, richer and more expensive blockbuster AAA exclusive games over long periods of time, it got to the point where June of 2019 was not the right time for the world's leading platform holder to reveal or talk about what's coming in the near future. Indeed, Sony are super conscious about overhyping and letting its fans down with lackluster and less meaningful announcements. And that's how things stand today. E3 is really an event about announcements, and that's what sets the pulses racing and the audience whooping. The challenge for the event is that the big AAA games are taking longer to build, and therefore there are shows where Activision doesn't really make an appearance or Take-Two takes a year off. If PlayStation really is adopting the classic fewer bigger strategy when it comes to software releases, how can it compete at E3 with Xbox, which coincidentally is going in the opposite direction in many ways with its acquisitions of numerous mid-sized developers? Layden's comments are really not a criticism of E3 at all if you look at it with those rose-tinted glasses off, but rather an admission that going forward PlayStation's strategy doesn't lend itself to hosting a big conference with wall-to-wall game reveals, at least not every single year. And in that context, Layden's suggestion that E3 becomes a fan festival of gaming where we don't gather there ready to drop a new bomb makes sense. His call for it to be akin to Comic-Con or developer panels seems like a sensible strategy for a company that wants to show up to E3 with just 2 or 3 sizable projects, just like Marvel might do at one of the big movie conventions. There are a few challenges to that, of course. For starters, those events exist already, whether it's PAX or in the US or Gamescom in Europe. Indeed, Sony used to be notable in its support of Gamescom, but it has scaled that back in recent years, and there are plenty of Comic-Con style events for Sony to attend if it so wanted. Furthermore, E3 can already be a show where you don't drop the next bomb and just run a series of panels. It's really a blank canvas for PlayStation to do what it likes. So what's stopping it from hosting a 45-minute panel on The Last of Us Part 2, Death Stranding, and stream it worldwide? Simply put, because the other publishers aren't going to stop what they're doing just to suit PlayStation's new content strategy. Sony actually did try to move away from big announcements last year. It focused on 4 previously unannounced products with a smattering of smaller reveals, but unfortunately it didn't go down very well. Partially that was due to the presentation, but it was also because of the unfavorable comparisons made between its showcase and Microsoft's, which featured numerous big announcements and surprises. And Layden may talk about changing E3, but there's nothing to change from that perspective. He can't stop Xbox from announcing things, or Ubisoft, or Bethesda, or EA. Sony is free to treat the show like a Comic-Con, but it can't expect everyone else to follow suit, and why should they? Interestingly, Sony isn't the only company that has decided to really not drop bombs at E3 anymore. Nintendo stopped doing it about 3 years ago. And when it did attend E3, it came with nothing but Zelda Breath of the Wild, which was announced in advance of the show. It spent an extended amount of time talking about the game, it put together a fancy booth experience, and it even ran some panels. It seemed indulgent, but Zelda became the talk of the show, and it proved to be a very effective marketing strategy. Since then, Nintendo has decided to focus primarily on one major game at each E3. In 2017 it was Super Mario Odyssey, and in 2019 it was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Of course, E3 isn't responsible for those games going on to be huge sellers, but it played a part, and fans are not always happy with Nintendo's approach to the show, but they've become accustomed to it. And of course, Nintendo isn't quite a different platform holder to Sony. It doesn't suffer quite the same level of comparison with Xbox for starters. But Nintendo's recent E3 efforts show that you can focus on quality over quantity. You can approach a show like Comic-Con and still come away with plenty of attention, spotlight, and excitement. PlayStation has clearly decided this doesn't work for its brands, so its solution is to simply not go and to criticize E3 in press interviews. After all, if Apple can snub CES and make it work, why can't PlayStation do the same with the world's biggest video game show? Regardless, E3 isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Xbox and Nintendo fans are excitedly talking about the June event already. The camera crews will still be there, the world's media will still be watching, and you can expect the companies that do go to be making the most of the extra breathing room now that Sony is not attending. It's not the world has changed, although of course it has. It's that PlayStation has changed. It no longer has the capacity to do things at E3 that it was doing just a few years ago, not on an annual basis anyway, and yet the onus is on Sony to change how it approaches the show, if at all. Now, it's certainly not the first time Sony has bowed out of events. Sony skipped Gamescom twice, allowing Microsoft to grab all the headlines and spotlight, and one would think it would be an opportunity for Microsoft to capitalize. But given the lackluster Xbox One game releases over the past 2 years, it doesn't really seem to matter whether Sony attend or not. I, for one, am hopeful Microsoft will deliver high-quality blockbuster titles for its next-gen hardware Xbox Scarlet, but the way things are going, it's more wishful thinking than a reality. But who can say for sure at this point? I'm sure most of us would like Microsoft to come out swinging next gen, but just like they did in the first few years of Xbox 360, a time when the company seemed untouchable. Unfortunately for Microsoft, the Xbox One generation will be remembered as the worst in the company's console history. Further compounding the situation is the rumor that a high-profile cancellation, Scalebound, will come exclusively to Nintendo Switch, a platform I publicly said would overtake Xbox One in games and sales, taking the number 2 spot. Of course, I was ridiculed at the time by the most ignorant among us, but you know, a lot of people think they're qualified to talk about the industry simply because they play a few video games. Indeed, the community is filled with thousands of unemployed insiders, analysts, shareholders, programmers, computer engineers, CFOs, CEOs, and whatever O's you care to mention. These people are often referred to as fanboys, but I would argue they're not even fans, just little boys. It's gotten to the point where it has become a big joke, quite laughable. I just can't take these people seriously, often muted but totally ignored on social media. There's also those hurry-come-up YouTubers desperately trying to make a name for themselves by calling out other YouTubers as frauds. And yet in the same breath, these accusers regurgitate exactly what those allegedly fraud YouTubers have reported. You literally cannot make this up. My tolerance level for these people has hit an all-time low. I just don't have the time for those who wish to zap the fun out of gaming. In fact, I love gaming so much, I'm so passionate about gaming, it actually sickens me to my stomach when I come across certain comments. Absolutely intolerable. If this seems harsh, it's probably because it is. So anybody, no exceptions, anybody I associate with on YouTube who blatantly lies or willfully misinforms the game community, I'll be forced to distance myself from them. I've already done so with a few, and still there are a few more I am currently monitoring. It's nothing personal. You cannot allow the years of hard work to just come undone just by association. You've got to put your brand first. Now, if you look at the big 3 platform holders, Sony, Nintendo and Microsoft, it appears the two are focused on high quality AAA production, while the latter is more focused on quantity, though not everybody thinks this is a good strategy for Microsoft. What would you prefer? 3 platform exclusive titles like Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2 and Crackdown 3, all 3 games reviewed as average, middling or poor? Or would you prefer one heavy-hitting, universally critically acclaimed, commercially successful Game of the Year winning God of War? Sure, some may pick the 3 over the 1, and for variable reasons. Perhaps you're not into hack and slash style action RPGs, so just swap out God of War for, say, Spider-Man, Detroit or Horizon Zero Dawn. The point is, sometimes less really is more. But what say you? Do share your thoughts and opinions on today's news, because that unfortunately brings us to the end of another video, but let's continue the discussion in the comments. And for all your current and next gen news updates, rumor and rampant speculation, go ahead, hit that like button, spread the word and keep it locked to Foxy Games UK. Remember, all relevant links where applicable can be found in this video's description. Subscribe to Foxy Games UK, remember to hit the notification bell so you never miss content. Thumbs up if you like it here, and help us reach more like-minded gamers simply by sharing this video. Consider supporting Foxy Games UK via Patreon, and or grab yourself a Foxy Games UK branded t-shirt or hoodie available in various colours and designs. You'll find both links in this video's description. I truly appreciate the support. And that concludes our time together today. It was great hanging out. Until the next video, remember, play games, not corporations.